And
What the?
so this is only the start. So this is one of the. So we can
okay.
add now at a very similar concepts have been used.
What
Yeah,
am
I
I
know
even
that-
looking at?
that I sort of derived from my 180.
All right, hey everyone, welcome back to Instinct RC. I'm Nick. So we're here with Matt from SOTA RC, and we've got some stuff to reveal today. This has been a long anticipated product, but also a long anticipated reveal. He has teased it, so I suppose we better start at the top. So Matt, why don't you introduce us to what we're going to be revealing today, and yeah, what everyone has been waiting for since you first released the 1/8 position sensitive damping system. Was that about a year ago now? Early 25?
Yes, and hi Nick, and thank you for the work you have done on those previous videos. They've been great, and thanks for accepting to work with me on revealing this product. Yeah, it was about a year ago that you first did your video, or I released my product, my first the 1/8 position sensitive system, and a year on, we're about to release number 2. So I'm very happy with the result. And when people see this, they'll. I'm not sure what the reaction will be, to be honest. Some people look at it and go, "What on earth have you done?" So it'll
Yeah.
it'll certainly draw some looks. I'm sure.
Yeah. No.
But yeah. So in terms of the background of this one, 1/10 was always an objective of mine. I did have it sort of simmering for a while, and I had something in mind, but it was only until I saw the Worlds recently in New South Wales, in Australia, and I watched those races, and I watched how the buggies were going around the track, and there was a particular triple, I think it was, and the cars, how they were landing and they were bouncing, and that sort of it sort of sharpened my focus to sort of look at the 1/10 again. And that's what I did. But prior to that, I had spoken to a couple of guys or a few other people overseas as well, and I asked them the question, right? What do you want out of a 1/10 shock? And one of the guys was Simon Healy, who has a background in competitive motocross, and also Ray Monday, who is well known around the
well known,
AE
especially
circles,
Australia.
and he has a background in automotive and suspension.
Yep.
And they both pretty much said we want a linear type of shock at low speed with a progressive curve when we get into the higher speeds. And that was essentially the sort of the challenge I was given. And I said, right, okay, challenge accepted. So in terms of for 1/10, I personally don't run 1/10. So I'm sort of reliant on sort of the feedback I was getting from those guys as well. There was a couple of guys in the UK, and they said we want that sort of compliant type of shock absorber. And again, to sort of get that you need that roll, you need the grip, but you also and the 1/10 are very soft in terms of their suspension setups. They are very free.
Yep.
But you see when you look at, say, the Worlds, when something big comes along, they really do sort of they struggle, and that's the whole compromise with our current Pistons being. I think they mark their 100th anniversary this year, so happy birthday to the little potato mashers. So we're well overdue. So the obvious. So everyone when I said I was doing 1/10, they all just pictured me shrinking down the 1/8, and
yes, and for everyone watching, this is it here. I'm hoping the camera will focus. So that's the current position sensitive damping system we have in the 1/8 yeah, scale buggies and stuff that I made some videos on early to mid 2025. So yeah, I mean, I think everyone's sort of expecting you, yeah, to just shrink that down.
Yeah. And I can now confirm to everyone that's not what I did. This is a complete departure. Uh, and look, there's a number of reasons. One is purely the price of the product for 1/8. It is, it's reasonably expensive, and it sort of limits the availability to people, accessibility to people.
Mhm. Yep.
And that's just the reality of that particular product. There's a lot of machining. There's a lot of items that go into it. It's not easy logistically because of all the different shock lengths and everything. It's a bit of a nightmare. And as much as I would love to have done the same again for 1/10, it's just a large capital outlay. And it wasn't. I wanted something a bit more bang for buck, as well as more accessible across more models, and also to get back to the initial sort of challenge was, all right, we want a linear to progressive shock. And I'll probably generalize in saying that, so position sensitive, no doubt could have done this, but position sensitive is typically for off road extreme. So it is, if we were to look at the sort of products, and I'll once I reveal the actual product, you'll see what I mean. But position sensitive is very geared towards an off road. It's true off road. That's why it's used in every off road motorsport you can think of. So it's for the extreme bumps, jumps, and what have you. So your desert races and your motocross and mountain bikes, what have you, they've all got a element of position sensitive. They call it different things. 1/10 in general, you're running potentially on carpet. You're running indoor tracks where they're sealed
Yeah,
surfaces.
sealed, very
You're
smooth,
typically not running,
super
typically,
rough.
and I know there'll be exceptions, obviously, but
Yep,
you're
yep.
typically running a higher grip, faster, less bumps, jumps. It's sort of it's a different. They're a different style of track. So I've made a product that will hopefully, for most, will sort of tick that sort of basic requirement. So
Yeah,
that's where I was at, and that was the
yeah.
challenge. And I think I've certainly met that challenge. And in testing, this thing has it's actually exceeded my expectations. And we've had some. I've sort of revealed some early testing, and certainly the testers have come back and going, no, it's not ready for release. I still haven't beaten enough people yet. That was Simon. He doesn't want me to release this because he just says, well, you're not really giving me enough time to have fun with this. But
Right.
it
Is that
doesn't.
a hush hush on who the tester is?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I guess, well,
No,
that was
no,
his
it's
body on
it's
the reveal.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
it's
so
fair
he's
enough.
certainly testing it. I can name it. I haven't got permission to name the other ones, but they're right at the top in the Australian 110 scene.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
I'll get their permission first before I mention those names. But
yeah,
there are a
yeah,
few very good guys testing it, and it's been very positive. So I'm very happy with this product. It's yeah. So
yeah.
and as I say, at the time of this taping, it's about, yeah, about 3 weeks away from release. There's some parts still being finalised, but the main body of the part is underway. So,
Yep, yep.
but without further ado, I guess you want to see what I've done, I suppose.
Yeah, I just want to quickly make one or two comments. So just for everyone watching, I'm not going to say the exact date, but we are early January. So hopefully I'll get this video out within a few days, within a week. And then we're in the be like 2 weeks maybe to the official release. But yeah, I myself personally, I'm not much of a 10th scale guy either. I've sort of only got into it late 2025 as well, doing the nationals coverage and running short course. But yeah, even I was so surprised, especially like our local track, Adelaide Radio Control Raceway. It's high grip Astro, but the cars are set up to be so soft. And I just couldn't believe it. Like we're talking like 20, 25, 30 weight oils. you know, on such high, and that's just because the surface, while it has grip, is so uneven. I guess on carpet, like I don't have any experience on carpet, but I guess you could probably go much higher on the oils on carpet. I don't, I'm personally not sure. Maybe you can comment on that, but yeah, I think that's one thing is 10th scale shock setup seems to be just so different from 8 scale, especially like you said, you don't really find super rough tracks in 10th scale like you would in 8 scale.
Mm. Yeah, and I guess that's the and that was the lighter oils. Uh, those I did do a video on oils, and I guess in a way what I'm doing, they were sort of leaning towards that anyway, with a sort of a linear to progressive, and
Yep, yep,
because they're using a lighter fluid, that does tend to become what they call a progressive curve. But the silicon oils that we use, even at say a standard 1/10, which is say the 27.5 weight, 34 or 35 weights or 32 and a halves, they're still say 10 times thicker than you would get in a normal shock in an automotive sense. They're still very thick oils, so they don't tend to get progressive. And I'll go into that in a second
yep.
if we cover that off in this video. But yeah, so it is they're still running very rudimentary, very primitive type of you know 2 by 1.6 by
Yeah,
one
yep,
plus
yep,
1.5 holes.
1.5,
They're
yeah, yep. And you know, you can
very
still get
well
like
designed.
valve things, you know, valve pistons and stuff as well. But yeah, it seems much
Yeah,
more limited, and that's why I think leading up to this, you have mentioned previously that shrinking the 8 scale, you know, position sensitive damping system just wasn't really a viable option in the end. I don't think my camera's going to focus,
not
but
really. It's yeah. So with the 1/8 system that I've got, I looked at it, and again, it wasn't. It was a little bit cost prohibitive, and also when you look at the number of cars that 1/10 guys potentially race, you could have 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive, mod, unmod. There's a lot of vehicles that they are potentially using, and then there's a lot there. From what I've seen in the local racing here as well, it's usually a father and son as well. We don't typically see a lot of that in 1/8, but there is a lot of father and son type races. And if you look across all those, then you're talking it can be potentially quite expensive. So again, it's something a little bit more geared towards track, cost friendlier, and but also will give you a level of performance well above the old 100-year-old relics. Uh, and yeah, this thing has so much tuning in it. It's the options are almost unlimited, and you'll see in a second what I mean by that.
yeah, and I think that's always the you're always compromising with the old systems, especially like on Astro. It's such high grip, and you can have jumps that are quite high, but you have to set the car up to be quite soft because the surface is quite rough. So you're setting it up for most of the track, but you can't set it up for the like maybe 70% of the track, but you can't set it up for the other 30%. It's always a compromise. So I suppose it's a matter of trying to be able to accommodate more variation in the track and be able to tune it for those
Yeah,
different
yeah,
conditions.
and
Yeah.
and hopefully this shock will give you that window. It just broadens that window out, that tuning window, so
Yep.
you can um, enjoy your racing a little bit more. And again, I sort of reiterate that even with the 1/8, it's there's a lap time benefit, as well as it just makes things a lot more enjoyable. You're not having to service your shocks as much, perhaps, with the my 1/8 system, but
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
it's yeah. So this is just an advancement on, again, 100-year-old relics. So yeah, it's
Yep. No,
very happy with the
absolutely.
result, and I'm happy to share it with you when you're ready.
Cool. Yep. I've got one more point which we'll talk about later, which is relating to cost, but otherwise, yeah, without further ado, let's crack
Okay, all
into
right.
what
I'm
you've
going to
got
share my
for us.
screen.
Go for it. I'm very curious to see what this is. I have no idea what to expect.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Sec, I will. Oh, here we go. Watch stream. Let's see what we got. All right, I'm seeing a piston with holes.
Okay, there you go. That's it. And
That's it. All right.
they'll be available
Thanks
in
for
3
watching.
weeks. Thanks for watching. There's different piston holes, and miraculously, the flow of the oil goes through the different piston holes, and you get different damping.
And this replaces your
No.
whole shock package, right? You just need one piston.
Yeah. Well, well, everyone else. No, I'm kidding. All right, so
Oh my God, that's a good start.
not how it works. All right, so the good stuff is on. This is the bottom side of the piston. So for all those who thought it was position sensitive, no, I'm working on a piston. So this is the that's where we start, and then we can bring it over here, and we've got a rather
wow.
interesting shape. And
What what
Yeah,
am
I
I
know,
even looking at?
It's it's very angular. And that's why I've sort of got a blue, and I'm not sure if you can see off to my left, but there's also a nice a sort of like a Lambo yellow type of Lambo yellow as well. And I sort of thought that color was quite nice for the because of the angular type of look of it. It reminded me of a Lamborghini type of car. But yeah, so that's what I've cooked up. But this is only the start. So this is only the start.
Okay.
So this is one of the first that I can think of, and this has a patent application on it. But this is one of the first ever shim stacks. It's a reverse shim stack. So what this piston can do is we can then add compression shims to this piston. So
Oh,
we can add
okay.
we can add at a very simple sense. I'll put them all on. So it's we've got a rebound shim as well, and we've got a screw and we've got a shaft. All right.
Oh
So
my
here's what it
gosh.
looks like in full. So what we essentially have is a 5-hole piston. Similar concepts have been used for that I've sort of derived from my 1/8. The people who use the 1/8 will be happy to know that I've increased the size of the grub screw from a very small 1.5 using the 0.7 hex, which I think is the smallest you can actually get. I've now gone up to the massive 0.9, and that's an M2 grub screw. So that's got a little bit more bite. But what we can do with this piston is where you can see these what we call veins at low speed. The oil, imagine this piston is moving upwards. The oil, and can you see my cursor?
Yep, I can.
Yeah, so the oil is coming down around these veins, and these are made out of different various thickness plastic shims,
Yep.
and the oil can bypass and move through the holes. So we've got essentially in compression at a slow speed, or at a speed that we determine, we can have the oil can flow through 4 holes.
Yep.
Right. Then, so that's the linear side of things. At low speed, we've got a linear, we've got a low speed compression. Then, as per the challenge, we then want a progressive system. So in the progressive system, as the velocity increases in the piston, the force increases, and at a given speed, as the force increases, the fluid flow increases through the velocity increases through those holes, and that creates a low pressure. And that low pressure, you get a high pressure above the vein, you get a low pressure below it, and it's basically like a vacuum. So that vacuum then pulls those veins, that vein shut. So at a certain velocity, these things close. Right?
And this is on the compression? Or
Yes, in the compression, that they
Yeah,
will.
right.
So as it's moving
Yep.
up, this thing basically gets pushed down
Yep,
because the
yep.
oil is pushing
It's
down
pushing
on it,
down on it. Yep.
because it's flowing through the hole, and it's basically sucking it closed. So what happens? You then get in a high speed compression situation in this particular setup, you can get these two holes will close, and you're then down to two holes. So you go from low speed 4 holes to high speed 2 holes. So you get a ramp up in compression, and that's what gives us our very progressive curve. And depending on the type of the material that we use, so that here we can have a different thickness material over a different
Oh,
size
yeah,
hole,
right.
we can get a completely different damping curve. So this thing is it's like a Swiss Army knife. We can do so many things with this. It's quite crazy, and that's where keep it simple to start with. But the expectation is you can drill out the holes, or you will drill out the holes. The two colors, this one's set up where there's a 1.3 mil hole, 1.3, 1.35, 1.35, and that gives a similar feel to a 2 by 1.6, 1 by 1.5, or it's actually a little bit less damping. And then the yellow is a 1.45, 1.4,
Yeah,
and that then
right.
gives you that gives you a similar damping to the 2 by 1.7, the 1 by 1.6. And I know people use various configurations, but it's surprising when you test some of these piston configurations, whether they're using a 2 hole or a 3 hole, how closely on the dyno they actually do sort of get to. You can have a 3 by 1.5 and it'll do basically the same as a 2 by 1.7. Um, so it's funny how they sort of gravitate towards the same sort of damping curves. But this then just goes to new levels in terms of how much damping and how much tuning you can do on it.
Yeah.
Um, the whole thing
Yeah.
is there's a rebound option there, so you can either have a rebound similar to what I've got on the 1/8. That's similar to your sort of your MIP or your VRP, so you can add additional sort of rebound damping. And again, that's depending on the shim. That's a 1.5 hole. You can drill it out, or you can leave it, or you can leave it open. So you can leave that without any sort of shim on it and have a 3 or 5 hole, effectively a 5 hole piston working in both directions. And the the difference between this and, say, a traditional shim stack is the shims are typically, so you've got the piston like that, say. Um, the shims would be on the
Yeah, I
underneath,
was gonna say
and the
they'd be on
shims
the underside, yeah.
underside, and
Yep.
where in compression, the oil goes through the hole, the orifice, and it pushes on the shim, and at a certain rate, the shims then open.
Yeah, then open. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. The problem we have with RC, or the challenge we have with RC, is limited space being one, and also material types. With the shims being, say, plastic, say stainless steel, shims in the automotive sense, they're all stainless steel, and they're usually, say, a point 0.1 mil thick or a point 0.2. Uh, to bend that type of shim under an RC, you probably won't get the velocities. You would have an exceptionally hard piston, and it may or may not actually, open
Yep.
when you want that to open. You'll get essentially a digressive, or you just get you get no damping
Yep.
in a traditional shim stack for in an automotive sense, because those rounded shims, they don't bend so easy.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and
Yeah.
also with plastic, and all a couple of things with plastic as well. Even if you have, say, a plastic shim, and I have tried them on the underside, you get deformation, or deformation. So the when you take a particular material and you bend it too much, you get a permanent bend in that material. So you've got to be careful not to strain the material too much, otherwise you don't get it doesn't return back to its original position. So it's sort of like anything. Say, your aluminium, your shock mounts or something. You bend that, then if it goes over a certain part, over a certain degrees of strain, it's just not springing back. It's
Yep.
permanently
Yep.
deformed. So that's where a shim stack underneath the piston doesn't work, and also the other point is then you need a rebound circuit. So you have to have in a traditional piston, you've got two circuits. You've got a rebound shim stack as well as as well as a compression circuit. We don't really have the space, and we don't have the forces, and it's incredibly complicated and we just don't have that progressive type of oil either. So this
Yep.
is and that's where you can't necessarily apply automotive or current automotive large size shocks technology into an RC. There are different
Different
requirements,
beast.
and yeah, and particularly around the oil. So
Yep.
this was the brainchild. This is why I came up with these having the shim on top, because by having this piston that has a slight angle, I can limit the amount of strain that shim is under. So I can where automotive shims might have a stack of 10, 15 shims, I can get away with say one shim or two shims and not necessarily have that permanent deformation of that shim, if that makes sense. And I get a more definitive damping profile, because once that hole shuts, as you can imagine, you go from 4 holes to 2 holes,
Mm,
you're getting a big increase
big increase.
in damping response.
Yep. So is
So that's
that?
where we're at.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. I mean, yeah. This is. I suppose. Yeah. This is so much like more complex than I had anything, that I had in mind. It's just this is insane. I suppose it's. Yeah, the limitations of 10th scale, everyone was, like I said earlier, everyone was thinking that you could reduce the 8 scale into the size of 10 scale, but, even I could have, if you've had one of these in your hands, you could sort of see how that's infeasible, especially when you look at a 10th scale shock and how small they are on like the 2-wheel drive buggies and stuff. So yeah, this is a very interesting, but very also like I feel like it's almost more complex in some ways than the 8 scale system, just because of how you've had to work around like the physics and the forces and also the space limitations. But like the tuning of the shim stacks, and then the sizes of the holes, how many holes, like when you have them open, what holes you have, with shims on top and what ones you don't. It's like, man, I can the tuning possibilities are almost endless with this. It's yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right, and that's why the testers at the moment they've got sort of two things: is to have fun testing it, but also come up with those sort of starting type setups, so people don't necessarily have to try and work their way through what would be a good starting setup. So there's a couple of testers using it on carpet as well as sort of mixed type of tracks. The I think it's the world's track, for example, in New South Wales is might be getting a workout at the moment, and that's pretty rough as I understand it.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, so we can have different type of setups, but the key the key sort of call out that we get, or the feedback, is that you've now, and I went down to our Knox track and watched it, the sort of maiden flight, not long ago, and it's fantastic to see this very lightly sprung vehicle, and it's taking up the bumps, but then as soon as it gets to a larger jump, when it lands, it's not even hitting the chassis. When these things load up, it's you could put, well, conceivably, if you put, and I wouldn't recommend it, but for some might do it. But if you put if you cover 4 of these holes, and those vanes move and close up the holes, you've virtually got hydro lock. Those
Yeah.
things, you literally will just And
Stop.
we did actually do that at one stage, and it was just the whole thing was just locking. Even on the dyno, I busted the basically the shaft on one of the shocks because I I thought I'd give it a go, and I think I had about 65 kilos of force on that one shock, and it for a 1.5 kilo buggy, so you're not
No.
65 kilos. That it yeah, it wasn't good.
It wasn't good.
But but it just proved that it proved the
Right.
concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we're at, and I do have a sort of an Excel spreadsheet if you want to look at that to sort of how it looks on a spreadsheet. But
Yeah.
that's up to you whether you want to go through that on this video. But um,
All right, hey everyone. We're just putting this in here as a bit of a follow-up. A follow-up on the full tuning capabilities of this new piston design, because we've covered the basics, but we want to go without going into the full deep dive. I want to briefly sort of cover the full extent of its performance characteristics. So, Matt, take it away.
okay, yeah, thanks again, Nick. And yeah, I suppose the way I've been explaining this is so not to scare people, but I probably oversimplified what this can do. And in gaming parlance, I probably had it on easy mode, and again, I won't go into deep dive, and I'll try not to go too long. I will give you an example of what sort of hardcore mode would look like. If for those who are familiar with your Diablo games, but it probably shows my age again. But what this piston can do if you take the blinkers off and say, right, full nerd out, geek mode, hardcore mode. The features of this is, and this is what would separate it from and put it up even at the highest level of, say, automotive damping pistons, is this piston can be individually tuned. So even on my position sensitive, the rebound valving has only one real sort of valve system. You could conceivably put two shims on it, but it's still going to give you a single response. The way this has been designed is there are 4 ports. They can be tuned 4 different ways, distinctly different ways. So the port 1, 2, 3, and 4 will give you different timing of the damping, as well as you can then also adjust the port size without affecting how the other ports behave, in a sense. So it's not like an aggregated damping response. It is their 4 individual zones. And essentially what that could give you and again, and this is in hardcore mode, and it's not necessarily what everyone will do. And there's easy mode, hardcore mode, and there'll be something in the middle. We won't go through that now, but you can conceivably get 5 levels of damping in this piston. So you can have a low speed, you could have a mid-low speed, you could have a mid-speed, you could have a mid-high speed and a high speed, 5. Now, the other key component is that this, the way the piston is configured is it is a bidirectional design. The flow can move unimpeded in both directions. It doesn't require additional bleed ports or rebound ports. There's one on the side, and I'll get to that. So what I mean by that is because there is a large gap between the port and the shim, as in rebound, as the fluid flows through and back up through the piston, it won't inhibit that flow and slow it down. So with the shims off, it will operate in a way where the distances between the holes and the shims, if you put the shims all on, and if they don't, and if you set them to not flex, it will still show the same characteristic in damping performance, both in compression and rebound, as if the shims were off. So, and that's an important distinction to make. It doesn't impede the flow, and that's what enables the full damping characteristics here of 4 distinct, in this case, 4 distinct or 5 distinct damping curves. I hope this makes sense. Again, we're in geek out mode, I guess. Uh, so 5 damping levels, 5 different force levels, but that's not where it sort of stops. So this can also be by design. You can get a complete lockout. The system allows that. I haven't engineered around that. Again, that's why there's no bleed holes or bypass sort of ports. You can, if you wish, and I wouldn't recommend it, but that's again, that's up to the end user. This is configurable, easy, normal, and wherever you want to go in between, all those sort of different levels. So, what this also allows, and why I've got this, the rebound, the shim, and this can be uncovered or covered, and that could effectively create a bleed hole. So you could actually, if you had that uncovered, you would have then a 6 damping curve, because when they're all closed, flow would revert to that one hole there. So there's potentially 6 damping curves. But you can also, and this won't be available from the start, because this will require a little bit more work, but we can also add a shim stack in a digressive sense underneath the piston.
I was going to
So we
say,
can have,
yeah, this wasn't
sorry?
this wasn't in the initial preview. I don't remember seeing.
No, and
Yeah.
and look, I wanted to, and again, that's probably upon reflection. I didn't, and again, that's sort of like, it was easy. Now this is where we can get to at an extreme sort of level, and again, I don't want to scare people off. But this just gives you that operating envelope. This thing has so much width in terms of how you can tune this, and this is not necessarily for an off-road capability, or perhaps it depends. And this is all down to the end user, and some tuning guides will do. And on day one, I won't be adding this in anyway. This will be an option that'll come down the way, because that it's going to require a little bit more work, but it has been designed for backward compatibility, and that's the only reason I add that rebound port there. Is if I obstruct these holes, I need an additional flow, and that's the reason why I have a rebound capability here as a circuit to counter the obstruction of those holes here. So it is a bi-directional flow, but if you add a digressive shim, it's obviously hard up, and it would restrict the rebound through those ports that it's covering. So, but what that bottom shim or shim stack, again, we can configure that. The beauty of the 1/10 shaft is it uses a screw, so you can within reason, the stack height you can move. You have a fair bit of degree, and I don't need any flexible type of washer to seat anything. It doesn't require, because these shims are flexible, it's not reliant on any sort of additional sort of rubber membrane or anything like that for it to operate. These are completely independent tuning vanes. That vane there operates completely in isolation of the one opposing it, and this is where this modular design has different damping forces. So in the extreme view, you could have many different damping curves. Again, you could add a digressive curve, and this you could have a shim that just blocks this hole. You could have a different shim that blocks that hole. So you could have actually 2 levels of digressive. Now, for those who know digressive is typically although Bilstein, I'll correct that, Bilstein do their a digressive type of valving for their off-road. But on the whole, your Fox and your, I think it's Icon, they do a sort of a more linear to progressive curve. But this is that added option. I wanted to add the breadth of sort of tuning, so you can have whatever your tuning desires are, and you can try them and see if they work. But on a very, very, for example, if you're on a very high grip carpet surface and you want initial steer, this could give you that. If you're not going to tune with your oil, say, so you could actually probably use a digressive shim. And again, day one not necessarily, but and that's only because of the materials. So I've got to be careful with materials because of that permanent deformation, and I might have to get into some sort of exotic material to ensure I can that'll work, but it will be backward compatible. The piston itself won't be changing, but it just enables a far greater envelope of tuning. So again, then you've got low speed, and then you've got as many damping curves. But to make it simpler, that you would typically in most shocks, even at the modern level, you would have a low speed type of arrangement, and then you would have a mid speed, and then you would have a high speed, and possibly you could have something over that that high speed, and that could be a lockout. So, and by lockout, I mean that all the ports close, and you get a protection of sorts, which is not too dissimilar to what the position sensitive would do. So this system is as close as you sort of can get to a position sensitive without having the full blown structures as we've discussed previously. I know that's just full geek out mode, but any questions from your end?
No, like I think, you know, even from my sort of basic understanding, it makes sense. So each of the holes are pretty much tunable, you know, based on the hole diameters, the shim sizes, like, you know, the material you use, things like that. And like there's so much tunability. And I was, you know, even looking at this from, you know, even if you don't really know much about piston tuning and shock tuning, you can see just through all the shims, you know, in all the holes, that there's a lot of tuning capabilities here. Excuse me. And yeah, the shim underneath will be an interesting addition. I'm curious to see, you know, how it looks like it's held on by a screw. So I'm curious to see, you know, if you're going to change that or reinforce it. But yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, you're right. It's and good observation. This for the ease of actually installing the shim, because it could be really quite painful, and I haven't shown, but there's typically a washer there, obviously, for these pistons. The 110 piston will have a washer, so a washer would sit under that shim. But to fix that in place while you try and mount the thing, I found this would probably, when the digressive shim kit sort of is available, and I'm happy with how it performed, instead of a grub screw, it would be an M2 button head screw. And I actually have designed that the button head screw won't impact on the piston diameter. So this would be a button screw that you can then screw up through here, and would still retain. It would stop the rotation of these shims up here, as well as seat the digressive shim stack. If that makes sense. And and that just helps, and that's just there purely just to help with the assembly of these shim stacks, because, you know, as I said, if you've got 4 different port configurations, your shim stacks are going to be, you know, more than just one. You'll have 3 or 4. Although as you stack them, they even by virtue of stacking, you're changing the height difference between the ports, and even that alone can subtly change those differences. So you may not necessarily have capability. Yeah, and that's sort of why I say jokingly that this is sort of like a Swiss Army knife. And I suppose I said that and didn't probably go into explain. You know, all I did was just flick the knife out. But this is when you flick everything out, what this thing can do. And you've got just for the, and that's for people who really love their tuning, and there's, you know, and there are people out there, and this can, but you can strip it back, and you have other forms of tuning, so you don't necessarily have to go to this mode, which is, you know, it's pretty insane. I could almost argue that this has more tuning capability even at the top level of automotive pistons. This thing can do a lot the way it's configured, and you know, and that's why it's sort of important, because it's there's nothing in the RC world that comes anywhere near this type of level of tunability. You know, even my position sensitive doesn't come near to this. I would have to put in. I run out of space on the sleeve to have this level of damping curves. It's just not. It's just not possible, to be brutally honest. Not saying that the position sensitive is no good, but it's a horses for courses type of application. And yeah, this one, as I said to you at the start, it's as I settled on how this would work, the capabilities just kept on naturally, increasing as I worked on it.
Yep. No, that's cool. Yeah, like it doesn't make the position sensitive system inferior. It's just a different way of doing it, and it would have its pros and cons as well, I'm sure. Even if it does have more flexibility. All right. Well, this has gone for over 15 minutes now, a bit longer than the 2 minutes we wanted to. So no, you're right. So we better wrap it up there, because otherwise we're going to be going into the full deep dive. But there's just so much to cover. So, and my camera's about to battery is about to be fully drained. So is there any last comments you want to make before we wrap this up? And
no. We'll save that for the deep dive. Thanks again, cool. Nick.
No worries. All right, thanks, guys. We'll get on with the rest of the video. So hope you enjoy. Yeah, I think what we might do is I think we'll record that after this, because we might as well while we're here. But I reckon, like, for the reveal, I reckon this will be this will be the video. This is like a good introduction. Then we can do some more deep dives into it, because I'm sure from just looking at this, a lot of people are just like, what the, like, probably 1,000 questions in their head. I mean, it's such a complex design, but I'm sure the benefits are probably, as you've said, you can get it to the point where it can hydro lock. But then if you're changing your tuning windows and messing around with the shims, you have so much flexibility in this. And I suppose my sort of question, after seeing all this and sort of having my brain explode, is how do you sort of draw the line between, we can make 1,000 different shim stacks and shims of varying thickness, materials. We can have so many different holes of different combinations. Like, essentially, you could you could take a drill to this and drill as whatever diameter holes you want, and like, there's so much flexibility. Where do you sort of how do you sort of not get lost in all that possibility and sort of nail it down to like a good starting spot, and then having sort of set, I guess, steps in either direction for each shim, like thickness and then also diameters? How do you sort of lock that down to, something you can, have options, but not have it blown out of proportion with way too much to choose from?
Yeah, good question. I guess that's, for me, that's the benefit of having a dyno. I can test a lot of variations of these shims, and I can see where we can introduce the high speed. So this, by introducing, say, a thicker shim, you delay the high speed, the introduction of that high speed. So you can change both. There's two things, and this is where it's unique even on full size shocks. So in full size shocks, you can change your potentially your shim stack, and that changes the timing, but the orifices are sort of fixed, although you could probably change another few things. But here, it all comes down to how many of these systems you're going to buy. But I'll have a starting sort of setup for these type of tracks. What I would note, though, is even if you don't have the absolute ideal starting point on this piston, it's probably, you're still going to find it's better than what you've got now, because of the advantage of what this thing can do in terms of how it can load up and prevent you from bunny hopping all over the when things get bumpy. So it's sort of, it'll be better than basically what you've got. But then as more tuning setups come along, it will only get better from there. But the basic package will have a number of shims, and you're sort of limited by that. I'm not producing 100 shims for you to then try and go
Yeah,
away and
yeah,
play with. So we'll limit the
yep,
sort of the options you've got. As for drilling out holes, look, I can't stop that. I can only say here's a starting point, and that's why I've gone with the
yep,
14145 and the 13135. Um,
yep,
if you wish to drill them out, then people are drilling out, shaving parts out of my 1/8 one as well. But that's I thought there were plenty of options there too, but that's just what people do. They get a hold of these things and they make it their own, and that's good. But yeah, this is infinitely more adjustable than your standard orifice piston. That's gone. But
yep,
but yeah, the I will I'll have all the sort of dyno results of where it will sit, and you can look at, say, a carpet track, and you'd say, well, at carpet track, I'm not getting that many bumps. It's a high grip, so I still want that roll for the grip, but I don't necessarily need to be going really uh, um, for it to engage that high speed damping increase. I just need to be going a little bit more faster than X, and that's when I want it to sort of slam into place, and you can choose, say, a thinner shim for that and bring it engage it earlier. If you're on a bumpier track, you want to delay the onset of that high speed engagement, and that's about as simple as it sort of gets. Is that on a bumpy track you want a thicker shim or more shims, delay the onset, and on a higher grip track you probably want to bring it in earlier, and especially on a high grip. If you're accelerating fast and it's dropping the back, you could almost um, tune it to engage the shims to sort of ease that back a bit, both in braking and acceleration, to stop it from pitching. So
yep,
there's a lot of options people can play with this system, and to make it scary again, I'm not sure if you can see my screen, is that you can cut these veins off, and you can have, say, one, and you can just
oh
close up
my
one hole,
gosh,
or you can close up three holes, or
yep, yep,
it's there are a lot of variations. And look, some people will absolutely love it. Other people will just say they'll look to their mate next to them, and they've done all the hard research and work, and
yeah,
say, all right,
yep,
I'll just copy what you're doing. But and look, that's what I faced with the 1/8 product as well. When people first saw it, they're just like, "Oh, this is too much." And it was only until sort of more experienced drivers got a hold of it and really wrung its neck. And even still, I would say we still haven't truly got to its limits on the 1/8,
yep,
and that's a
yep,
year later. There's still a lot of scope on that thing. Considering, and I'm up against, I don't know how long RC, and I'm up against 25 years of experience using these
yeah,
potato matches. So it does take a little bit of it will take people a bit of time to get a hold of them. But
yep,
certainly, talking to Simon, he's had no problem latching onto this, and yeah, it was only about uh, yeah, it is, and he's been very competitive in the last few races with these prototypes, and people have been hanging around him like he's he's quite popular. They're all trying to get a look at what
what
I've
you've
done. So it's
this absolutely like this monster of a creation that you've come up
there's
with.
monster creation, and look, there's more things there,
It
and there's a
is.
part I haven't turned, and I won't. I can. This thing can get a lot more complicated, or
Yeah.
there's a lot more adjustments, and but the application on this on road, this would be great for on road. So that's where we can apply this a bit more. And there's other, RC I'd like to see this sort of technology deployed on. And yeah, so this is just the start for me.
Yep.
And yeah, it's I'm really happy with the pre-production units. Like this thing, this is injection molded, for those who are wondering how this is going to be made, and the molding itself. People, and look, even me at one point was, injection molding, it's not as good as CNC, and my 1/8, the inserts are injection molded, and when I look at the accuracy they did with those, and for this, I lifted I set the bar even higher again, and I said to them, look, here's your challenge. I want this piston to look like it's been CNC'd, and they sort of just they laughed at me and they said, that's not the challenge. That's easy. And you'll see, you'll see with the pre-production units, they've these have been you wouldn't be able to do it with a CNC without post processing. You'd have to, because this is all being buffed out. This, the mold
Yep.
itself is
Yep.
CNC'd, and then it's what they call a diamond grit. So this is a A1 finish, which is what they usually use is for your injection molded glasses and what have you. So it's an optical finish. It is smooth. It is, and it's just beautiful and accurate. It's amazing. I'm really happy with how it's come out, and I think if people are against injection molding, well, not much I can do. Again, I wanted to keep it reasonably priced, and
Yep.
that's
Yep.
that's the best way to do it. And in terms of repeatability and consistency, the injection molding is arguably probably better than CNC anyway. It's and I get to choose different colors. So you know, um,
You can color
CNC,
code
the
things. Yeah.
typical, you get boring colors. You got black or white basically, and
Yep. Yep.
here I could get onto the RAL color thing, and I can have whatever color I want, which is pretty awesome. So I've got this almost looks like a Bugatti blue or something. So next to
Yeah, it
the,
does in a way. Yeah.
I don't know, a Ferrari red or something. I was almost going to do red, and I thought yellow and red didn't quite look nice, so
Yep.
I chose blue. But
Yep.
yeah, they look good in the flesh. I've got one
Yep.
here. They look pretty nice. So I'm really happy with how they've come out,
Awesome.
and you can see this little lip here. This design, so you know where to put the grub rather than the rebound, so you don't try and push the grub into the rebound hole rather than in where it's meant to go. So there's a few little adds that I made to it. To future proof it, and we can just add more to it from here. So the piston is the sort of the base, and we can do all sorts of things with it from here.
Yep.
So I know guys have drawers full of their 1/10 pistons. You can turf all those.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
suppose no. I suppose that's the thing. It's like, we'll go into cost, in another video, and obviously, you might not have it finalized at this point. But yeah, it's like when you're looking at a system that has such a completeness about it in terms of its flexibility, the relative cost, yeah, it might be like 2-3 times the price of like a different set of pistons, but I mean, this gives you like 5 million different options for tuning. This piston, whether even if you're using shim pistons, it might give you, I don't know, 10, 20, 100 different options, if that. And then you've got like, you have to go out and buy different pistons with different holes and different shims and things. And the relative cost, once you add all that up, it skyrockets versus having this system in the first place that is developed with everything in mind and the adjustability and tuning in mind already. So that's always going to be a factor. The initial upfront might be more, but especially if you're heavily into racing and you want to get into this tuning, then you can buy this and have all of it at your fingertips instead of needing to invest potentially thousands of dollars into into other piston and shim stack, combinations, whatever else is available on the market, whether it be MIP or, stuff like that. So that's always going to be a contentious topic. But yeah, I think when you look at it like that, it's would seem like the next evolution in, the way to go. So, but you are right. You
Yeah.
have a lot of competition to, sort of fight against. So it'll be interesting to see, it'll be interesting to see how it's received, I suppose.
Well, for the pricing, this stage, indicatively, I'm expecting this to come in cheaper than the MIP and the VRP pistons.
Okay.
I don't think MIP does a 1/10, but certainly they're around that. So for in Australian dollars, it might be around $65. I think ex-GST
Okay.
$68.
Yep. Yep.
I think for a set, and depending on how many
Very
how many
competitive.
shims I put into it, but I'm going to price this that in a sense that it's attractive and you can use it, and yeah, I think that'll have a lot more appeal, and more people can get in using it, and share their setups, and move on from, yeah,
Yep.
the our very old system,
Yeah.
and
No, absolutely.
again we'll and then I'll get inundated with the bashes as well, and how we
Yep.
can do
Yep.
that, and look, I suppose in a sense as well, given that this is sort of coming at tuning from a different angle completely, and it's sort of geared towards your smoother or your high grip tracks. It still does the bumps. There's no problem at the moment. As I said, it's been tested at the old track, at the World's track, and that hasn't been looked at for some months, and it's a goat track at the moment. So it's certainly getting a workout there. But I won't. I haven't confirmed it yet, but we may see this in a 1/8 application as well, and that may
Interesting.
suit, say, Euro tracks. So 1/10 is the start, potentially, and we'll see where the sort of demand takes it from there.
Yes, now you've said that, that is going to be a question I'm certainly going to dive into in future videos, whether that's going to be no spoilers now, but yeah, whether that's going to be its own thing, or that's going to be integrated into the current PSD, or I'd be very curious to find out more about that. So yeah, and I think yeah, sort of some last comments from me is, I'm not going to be a top driver. I'm sort of aiming, I'm in that sort of mid-range, maybe bit above mid-range bracket, which is perfectly fine with me. My role with all this is to try and, obviously fill other people in, and let people know about what's coming up, but also try to explain it in a way that more people can understand, because not everyone's a pro, not everyone's going to have all this in-depth knowledge. So and especially even with the 8 scale system, having like, there's some good baselines for this, and I feel like every time I've tried it, like, I couldn't tell you the difference between one insert and another, but every time I've tried it, whether it's at the nationals track, at a local track, and you've given me a setup and I've tried it, I've really liked it, and it's been super consistent, and it has been a noticeable improvement. So even if you don't go heavy into the tuning and just find a nice ballpark setup, keeping it simple, for guys like myself to start with, this is still a fantastic investment, because it's super consistent, and it will perform better than what you currently have. And then if you want to get into more complex tuning, you can, because it's
Yeah,
just, it has that flexibility. So yeah, I think finding that balance and being able to cater to both, I'll say, club racers like myself and the top guys is probably going to be, one of the key things moving forward.
mm,
But even as they are, you find a good base. If you can get a good base set up with the pros and stuff, and be able to feed that out to the public, and they have good base setups to start from, that's already a huge thing. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and yeah, and that's what's, if anything, that uh, I won't release the product until I'm happy with. I've got a good solid set of setup sheets. I don't want to release a product that's the pistons are done. They're locked in. They don't really vary. But I want a solid set of setup sheets that people can rely on, and get out there and start racing straight away, and feel
yep,
that difference. And it's yeah, as I said to you, it's pretty nuts what this thing can do.
yep, yep.
It's yeah. I'm very happy with it. I honestly, I wasn't expecting the results I did get when I first put it on my machine, and I thought, oh, me, this thing, yeah, it just
It's
worked.
very
And
good.
look, and
Yep.
that's didn't take as long to develop, but it's all that background, sort of work that I had done on the 1/8 that it sort of just came to me, and yeah, thankfully it worked without too many modifications.
Yep. Yep. No, absolutely. No, I think, even with the 8 scale system, it's great to see innovation, and I think it's a really, I mean, it's a daunting sort of thing to look at, but if it's gonna push the hobby in the right direction, I'm all for it, and hopefully more people can get around it, and there's always going to be pushback on things like that, but you got to keep pushing the boundaries and testing stuff and seeing what works, and it's like the when cars took over the horse and cart. It's like sometimes is people will resist change, but sometimes it is for the better. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I
Yeah, that's right. And
yeah,
yeah, well, as you said, there were people standing in front of the cars when they first came out, and 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 it was only 15 years, or probably 20 years after that, that the first orifice piston was invented, and that was 100 years ago. So it's about time. We're well overdue.
yep, absolutely. 100 years is a long time. I mean, but I guess they've worked well up until now. I mean, so people just got used to it, and now we can, with technology and stuff, we can move forward. So yeah, I think we'll wrap the reveal video up there. Are there any other last comments? Not going into depth on anything, but any last comments you want to say before, I suppose, leading up to the release, and any last things before we close this out? And I've got one or two, two things to add
No,
as well.
I'm again. Thank you for the time, and thank you for your support of the other product, and what have you, and RC in general. You're
Yep.
doing a great job, and it's good. Pushing our hobby sport more. It's great to see. So thank
Yep.
you very much for that.
No, it's been my pleasure, and like I said, if we want the hobby to continue and improve, we have to get behind new innovations and things. And I'm all about trying to. I've only been around the hobby for a year and a half, but trying to keep it alive and going. So yeah, I think that'll pretty much wrap up at least for now. For now, this reveal video. So what we might do is, if you guys have any questions, chuck them in the comments. What we're going to do is we're going to do some follow-up videos, and we might even see, depending on my availability and also Matt's, we might try and do like a regular, whether it's like a weekly or fortnightly or a monthly catch-up, just to answer questions and deep dive into maybe some non-SOTA related things, maybe shocks in general, maybe some more suspension tuning outside of just in general. Who knows? I'm sure that you've got a wealth of knowledge. I'd love to dive into the history of the shocks and also the SOTA system as well. There's a lot of things that we can cover. And yeah, if you have any questions, I've got a I've got a list that's ever expanding over here as we've been talking. But if you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and we'll certainly try and get around to answering them. But I suppose the other last little question I have is, when are you coming to South Australia to do some testing videos?
Uh, I don't know. When's your next major race? I'll get down there the next
Oh,
major
mate.
race.
Well, we're still working our calendar. I'll get back to you at the end of the month when we have our OGM. Are you
Yeah,
planning
no
on going
problem.
to the 8 scale nationals at all this year in March? Early March, I think, in
Early
Canberra.
March. Geez.
Yeah,
Where
Canberra,
is it?
Canberra, Canberra Off-Road
Oh,
Model
yeah.
Car Club, I think it is. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I could probably make that. I won't bring my car. I'll just go and
go for a
watch.
watch.
But
Yep, yep.
yeah, Canberra's not too far from me.
Oh, cool. Oh, that'd
Take
be
the
really.
take the kids and the wife and have a holiday. But yeah.
Well, a holiday for them, or holiday
Well,
for you.
you,
Depend as if they like
yeah,
watching
you won't
RC
see them
cars.
at the track, but
Yep,
yeah, we could do that. The Canberra track's very good.
I've heard
Um,
that. I've heard it's some of
from
the
what
best
I've seen,
clay in
yeah.
Australia, from what I've heard. So I'm very keen. I'm definitely planning. I'm planning on going there, and I'm hoping, definitely hoping to get there because that'll be an awesome track. So I think the last
Mm.
thing I want to add is just to from add on to this reveal video. This right here is a package that Matt sent me, which I haven't wanted to unbox because I didn't want to spoil it for myself before getting the reveal and the rundown. So yeah, I'll be opening this up very soon, and I'll be sure to share my initial thoughts on that. I'm not going to reveal exactly, I mean, you could probably guess, but I'm not going to reveal exactly what's in that. But thank you very much for sending that, Matt, and I hope I can do that justice in a video. And yeah, I'm happy to be getting behind this and getting behind the hobby in general. So yeah, I think that'll wrap it up for now. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. If you have any comments and stuff, feel free to leave it below. But otherwise, we will see you in the next video. All right, so quick follow-up question. What cars is this going to be available for?
Okay, all right, quick question. AE, yes. So essentially it's the ones, okay. No, that's okay. AE, Schumacher, they've got a different type of shaft, but this will fit the AE. The Techno, yes, but you will have to drill out the piston a bit more. I won't be making a specific Techno piston. They've got this weird indexing type thing on the top of their shaft, and it's just slightly bigger. I think they're running a 3mm OD, but you can, but they're using a standard screw still. So possibly Techno with a modification that would have to be done. I'll have more detail on that later. And the other major ones, TLR. So the TLR guys, I disappointed you with the 1/8. I'm sorry again, but for the 1/10, you guys are in there. I've checked the TLR shafts, and they do fit as well. They're the same as basically the AE. But X-ray, no, at this stage. We'll see how we go with the first release, and if the demand's there, I'll have to get another mold or molds, and we'll go for the X-ray, because they use a 13.2 diameter bore, whereas the others are all using a 13mm. So that's the limitation there.
Standing out for the sake of standing out.
Yes, and again, I haven't tested of the brands. I haven't tested Yokomo. I believe they may fit, but short answer is, if I haven't mentioned a particular make, Mugen, if it's like an AE shaft, this will fit because it's a piston, and that's again why I moved away from those sleeves, because to try and fit every make and model, I'd have 100 variations of sleeves, and nah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not worth the time and not financially viable, I suppose. Yeah.
Not at this stage, no.
Yeah.
No. And again, this will get, in terms of performance between this and say the position sensitive, it gets exceptionally close for the tracks that we previously went through.
Yep. We'll make sure to keep you guys updated.